Good afternoon. My name is Paul Vanas, and welcome to Real Estate Pro Talk. This show is a real estate-oriented program which will cover a variety of topics every Friday afternoon here on WOON Radio. Some of the topics we'll be talking about during our time together will be how to buy and sell a home, how to choose a real estate agent, flipping real estate, home inspections, and a whole lot more. I've been in the real estate business coming up on 40 years now, of which I own a real estate brokerage company, a real estate school, and a land development company. All of the knowledge that we're going to try to impart on you today is based on the continuing education classes that I teach licensed real estate brokers and agents, along with my personal experience and those of our expert guests. The goal in doing this is so you'll have the information in hand when you meet a seasoned real estate professional. And of course, anytime you're welcome to call us at 401-766-1240, 401-766-1240, and ask any questions on the subjects we'll be discussing, or you can call me on my personal cell phone after the show anytime at 401-265-6144. And of course, these shows, as I mention every week, are uploaded to youtube.com. If you miss an episode of Real Estate Pro Talk, all you have to do is go over to youtube.com and in the search box, put in Real Estate Pro Talk, and all of our episodes will appear, and you can pick and choose whichever episode that you missed. Today, we're going to try something a little bit different. I don't have a guest today, but we are going to talk about some information that you may find important or informational, especially if you're thinking of flipping real estate or becoming a real estate investor, or if you're just thinking of investing your money in real estate and getting a return on the investment. Today, we're going to talk about a little bit about a class that I teach seasoned real estate professionals on flipping real estate. There's many, many methods of flipping real estate. Some folks, I'm sure in the listening audience, have bought and sold a home for profit. My goal today is to educate you into how to find the right priced property and fix it up and sell it and make a decent return on your investment. Of course, some of the information we're going to talk about is a little technical. You might want to get a pencil and paper handy or record this broadcast because we will be discussing it in detail. And of course, as I mentioned, if you have any questions regarding these subjects, or if you need to be walked through any of the subjects we'll be discussing, feel free to call the station at 766-1240. So let me start off. This class that I teach real estate brokers is usually a 3-hour class. And of course, I'm going to try to condense this class down to 45 minutes to give you a basic understanding of what real estate professionals do, especially today, those who are actual investors in real estate. The investors are the ones who are buying the houses, that are flipping the houses and turning a profit and taking those funds and then turning around and putting them right back into another house and so on and so forth. Those of you who are old enough to remember Rocky and Bullwinkle, for those of you, the beginning of Rocky and Bullwinkle, the cartoon that came on every Saturday morning, the snowball, Rocky and Bullwinkle were on a snowball, and the snowball kept getting bigger and bigger and bigger. And that's what we're going to try to do for you today with your real estate portfolio. Try to take a small portfolio and make it bigger and bigger and bigger until hopefully you can become financially independent. So let's begin. I'll start off with a story. As I do, as you know, I have many stories in the real estate business, but this one was one from a couple of years back. It was a foreclosure auction in North Smithfield. And of course, I'm not going to mention any names or any addresses or any lenders or whatnot, but this particular house was a very, very nice house in a suburban neighborhood. And the bank was foreclosing on the property because at that time, if you remember a couple of years back, the market was a little soft. And unfortunately, some folks were losing their homes. And of course, that's a sad tale to say, but unfortunately, it is a reality. And so if you open up the legal section of your newspaper every day, you'll see the legal ads, and there are foreclosures in the legal ads telling you where, when, and how these auctions take place. So anyway, It was a foreclosure auction, and for those of you who've never been to an auction before, they run just like any other auction that you have on TV. The highest bidder gets the property. So we pulled up to this house that particular day, and the house was occupied. The previous owners were still living in the house, so therefore we couldn't see the inside of the house because you're not allowed, actually. So you have to really be keen to the wants and needs of the people who occupy the house. There was, of course, a big dog on the front lawn, and the dog was a Rottweiler, so that made it all the more reason why we didn't go up on the property. But in any event, we bid on the property, and the opening bid was $200,000 and some odd, and we were successful in acquiring the property at $250,000. Now, keep in mind, at that time, the property had a $410,000 mortgage on it. And of course, it was acquired in 2006, which was the peak of the market. Assuming that it had a 410 mortgage on it, someone probably bought this house for about $500,000, and they put $80,000 or $90,000 down on the property when they purchased it. But because the market had dipped down a little bit, and I shouldn't say a little bit, quite a bit, 20% or so, the bank was willing to forego the difference in what was owed and take what they could get, and then take the highest and best bid, in which they did. They took the $250,000. Short time later, now, when for those of you who've never been to an auction and understand how they work, you usually sign a sales agreement right there in the street on the hood of the car, and you agree to close within 30 days. And the 30 days is usually what's called in the legal world, time is of the essence. And what time is of the essence means that if you don't close in 30 days, you will lose your deposit, the deposit amount that you put down on the property. Usually the deposit's around $5,000 to $10,000. That's the usual amount of a foreclosure deposit. So anyway, to continue on, a couple of days after the auction, I received a call from someone who was the property owner. And I asked them how they got my number, and apparently they had tracked down the auctioneer company, and the auctioneer company gave them my telephone number. And this person asked me if I was willing to sell the house back to them because they ran into an unfortunate circumstance. Bad things happen to good people. My father used to say, and they ran into a situation whereby they just became they were underwater basically. So I said, well, yeah, of course I'd like to sell the house back, because our goal is in flipping real estate is to sell houses. So we'd probably put the house back on the market as soon as we close. Now, keep in mind, I haven't closed on this property yet. I have 30 days to close, and I received this phone call 2 days after the auction. So I told them, that they asked me what I want for the property, and I said, well, I think I'd like $300,000 for the property. And they said, well, let me talk to our parents. Our parents are going to refinance their house and give us the money to buy, to buy our house back, and I'll let you know. So I didn't hear from them for a couple of days, and of course, a week or so later, I got a phone call, and they said, hey, Paul, we've made the arrangements. We'd like to buy our house back for the $300,000, and when can we close? I said, we can close whenever you want to close, basically. So I had a closing in the morning with the lender from the foreclosure auction, and then I had a closing in the afternoon with the people who own the property. And it sounds really simple, and it was just that simple. Now, does this happen every single day? No, it doesn't happen every day. But if you put yourself out there enough, and you go to enough of these types of situations, you will run into a situation like this occasionally. If it did happen every day, we'd all be multimillionaires, but unfortunately, that's not the case. But again, it's like a baseball batter. Anyone who steps up to the plate to swing at a ball knows that the more you get up to the plate, the chances are great that you're going to get a hit. And in this case, it was a home run. So that's just one of the many, many, many stories we've experienced in the real estate business. And today, I'd like to walk you through the process of how you get into this type of arena, how you get into foreclosures and tax sales and investment property and so on and so forth. And of course, I'm going to try to condense this into a 45 or 50-minute presentation, which is going to be a little difficult, but I'll try to give you the highlights so you can give it some thought. And then, of course, if you have any questions after the fact, you can call me at 401-265-6144. Or if you have any questions during the show, please feel free to call 766-1240. So let's begin. Now, finding properties, the first thing you want to know is, where are the opportunities? Well, there are always opportunities in real estate. One of the things that are worthwhile in pursuing are what's called short sales. Now, a short sale is a house that's on the market for less money than what's owed on it. And what happens is that the owner, once a contract is signed, the owner of the property has to approach their bank or their lender and say, hey, I have the house sold for $200,000, let's say, for example, and you have a $230,000 mortgage on the property. Will you forego that $30,000 to make the sale happen? And of course, the lender then has a choice whether they say yes or no, or work out some sort of deal with the homeowner to pay them back after the fact. But those are short sales. Now, a couple of years ago, short sales were very, very plentiful. You could actually go into the multiple listing search engine and search for short sales, and you'd have dozens and dozens of these things that were available. Now, the difference between a short sale and a regular sale is they took a little time. Because once you agreed to buy the property, the owner would have to approach the bank, and the bank would then not give an answer right away. Sometimes it took a couple of 3-4 months. So you're literally tying up your deposit money for a couple of 4 months. And then, if it went through, fine. If it didn't go through, then, of course, you would get your deposit back. Now, even though short sales are not really popular right now, they're still out there. So look for those short sales. And, of course, the definition of short sale is that the sale is sold short, just like when they short a stock on Wall Street. It's sold short. It's short. It stands for less money than what's originally owed. The next thing we're going to talk about in detail is foreclosures. Foreclosures, obviously, is when one doesn't pay their mortgage. At some point, the bank, because the house is used as collateral for the loan, will foreclose. And this is done in Rhode Island. There's a method of madness whereby the bank has to wait 3 months before they can initiate a foreclosure sale, and then they advertise the property once a week for 3 weeks. So it takes about 4 months for a foreclosure to go through in Rhode Island. Now, where the bank advertises the property is in your local paper, Woonsocket Call, Providence Journal, so on and so forth. You can by statute, anything in Woonsocket and I believe North Smithfield and Smithfield have to go into the Woonsocket Call. So that's where you find them. You'll find the ads in the paper, and they'll tell you where and when, what date, and the property address, and how much the deposit is going to be. The next opportunity is tax sales. Now, tax sales are very common when one doesn't pay their property taxes or their sewer taxes or their water taxes or their fire district taxes for a period of time. The municipality will literally put their house on the block, and they usually have a sale once per year. And, bidders are welcome to go down and pay those taxes for the individuals. And then, of course, once they do, they reserve a right of redemption. The owner reserves a right of redemption to pay those taxes back within 1 year. So we're going to talk about those in detail as well. And the last place where opportunities are hiding are right under our noses, on our own streets, in our own neighborhoods. Existing MLS active listings. You'd be surprised how many houses that are out there that just pop on the market that are pretty good deals. They need to be fixed up a little bit. They need to be cleaned up a little bit. There's all kinds of situations where people come in. You've heard me in the past talk about people who've inherited a house and they're from out of state and they don't want to get involved in the real estate business and they don't want to fix the property up. They just want a quick sale. They want to get their money and go back to wherever they came from. So those are the types of situations which are wonderful opportunities. So having said that, let me get into now some of the details. But first, let's talk about tax sales. Tax sales are very common. Of course, if one doesn't pay their taxes, usually the taxes have to be at least a year in arrears, not paid. The town and city advertises in the paper that there will be a tax sale on a certain day. It's usually at City Hall or Town Hall, or if it's a fire tax sale, it might be at the fire station of the particular town or the particular fire district. If it's a water lien sale, it may be at the water department of that particular town or city. And what happens is at a fire tax auction, a property tax auction, is that it isn't bid like a regular auction. So we're all accustomed to auctions we see on TV where someone bids 1,000 and someone else bids 2,000 and someone else bids 3,000 and so on and so forth until the highest bid is procured. And then the auctioneer says going once, going twice, sold. A property tax, fire tax, sewer tax auction works a little bit differently. The auctioneer will announce the property address and they'll announce how much is owed on the property. And that's the amount that the bidder pays. So basically, everyone in the room raises their hand as soon as the notice is read, and the auctioneer picks someone who will be the successful bidder. Now, you might say to yourself, oh boy, Paul, this is a situation where the auctioneer may be in cahoots with the person in the audience, and that's really not true. The auctioneers always try to give everyone at least one successful bid. Now, sometimes you'll go to a city auction, a city tax auction, and there may be 200 properties that are being auctioned off, and there's 70 people in the room. Other times you'll go to a fire tax sale. I went to a Cumberland fire tax sale last year where there was 11 properties and there was 50 people in the room. So obviously a number of people are going to walk out of that room without having been a successful bidder. But here's the way tax sales work. Once you bid at a tax sale and you're the successful bidder, you go and pay the taxes immediately right after the sale. And what happens is that the owner of the property has 1 year to pay those property taxes back to the town. So 365 days has to go by before you can foreclose what's called on the right of redemption. Okay, the right of redemption cannot be foreclosed on prior to 1 year, assuming the party lives in the property. Now, what that does is if let's say they do go down, the homeowner goes down and they pay their taxes a couple of days after the tax sale. Okay, what happens is they pay the town the money plus the penalty. Anything from 0 days to 6 months is a 10% penalty. Anything from 6 months on is 1% per month thereafter until 1 year. So, and let's just use round numbers. Let's say you paid $4,000 for someone's taxes, and they all of a sudden they figured out, oh my God, I didn't pay my taxes, and my house went to tax sale, and they run down to town or city hall, and they pay those taxes. Well, the amount of money they would have to pay is the tax amount plus the penalty. In this case, it would be 10%. Whether it's 1 day or 180 days, it would be a 10% penalty. So you would make a $4,400, you would get a check for $4,400. You get a $400 return on investment immediately. And of course, if it went over the 6 months, it would be 1% per month thereafter. So if they went down and paid 11 and a half months later, you'd get your principal back plus a 16% return on investment. That's not a bad little deal, especially since most of the major lenders now are giving, I don't know, what's a passbook savings account right now, about 1%, 2%, if that. I don't even think you can get 2% in a passbook savings anymore. But that is one way of investing your money in real estate without even owning the property. You're not involved at all. The owner of the property doesn't pay you. They pay the municipality, and the municipality pays you. So if you have a couple of dollars socked aside and you want to get a pretty good return on investment instead of having it sit in a bank, that might be the way to do it. Now, if the 1 year goes by, and you want to foreclose on the right of redemption, you'd hire an attorney, and an attorney actually has to petition the court and tell the court that the property owner did not pay their taxes after that year, and they would foreclose on the right of redemption, and then you would actually take legal ownership of the property. Of course, if there's someone living in the property, you would also have to take responsibility for evictions and whatnot. But again, many people in the tax sale arena aren't even interested in taking the property. They're more interested in just getting the return on the investment. So that's one avenue of making, getting involved in real estate without even taking control of property. It's just developing a tax interest in the property. And these are done every single day. If you look in the newspaper, there's always a tax lien sale somewhere between water liens and sewer liens and fire tax liens and property taxes. So look in your local newspaper for the advertisement. The next type of sale I'd like to talk about, which is kind of unique, is a condo lien sale. Now, a condo lien sale is a little bit different from a tax lien sale. There's some similarities, but there's some differences. A condo lien sale, as you may know, if you own a condominium, people who own condominiums use condominium fees every month to the association, to the condo association, for the maintenance, for the plowing and the road repairs, the mowing of the lawns, replacement of the roofs and decks, and all kinds of common expenses. When someone doesn't pay their condo liens, their condo association dues, after a period of time, that association can foreclose on the unit by virtue of a condo lien sale. And the way a condo lien sale works is it's just like a regular foreclosure auction, whereby the property is advertised in the paper, and it basically says, the owner's name, the time of the auction, how much of a deposit is required is listed in the paper, and everyone shows up. But unlike a tax sale, a condo lien sale goes to the highest bidder. So the attorney for the association will usually open up the bidding at whatever is owed in back condo liens, and then the bidders will take it from there. And so you can see these things run up anyway. Let's say it starts off at $2,000. It might run up to $40,000. Now, the difference between a condo lien sale and a tax lien sale, in the tax lien sale, there's what's called a 1-year right of redemption, whereby that property tax owner has 1 year to go back and pay the taxes. In a condo lien sale, it's only a 30-day right of redemption. So the person who owns that condominium only has 30 days to go to the association and pay their back condo dues. Now, this is really important because what happens is on the 31st day, if they don't pay those funds back to the association, the person who bought the unit at the condo lien sale now owns the unit. And just like in a tax sale, in a condo lien sale, those sales are superior to the mortgages that are on the property. So what that means is that because they are municipal liens and so what's called super liens, any mortgages that are on the property are wiped out. So if, for example, you bought a condominium for $40,000, let's say, at a condo lien sale, and it had a $180,000 mortgage on it, and that bank did not come forward within the 30 days to pay those back condo dues back to the association, or the owner didn't pay the back condo dues to the association, on the 31st day, that mortgage is wiped out, and you have full legal possession of that unit. So those are quite interesting, and I've bought numerous properties like this over the years. Sometimes they're vacant. Sometimes you don't know who lives in them, and by the time you find out you own it, you go there and no one's there at all. So you just take over the ownership of the property, and of course, when you take over, you have to pay any back taxes or any back municipal fees that may be owed. 90% of the time, there's some property taxes that are owed, some water, some sewer bills, whatever that are owed. However, from that point on, all the expenses associated with that unit are gone, and you own the unit. So those are really interesting to go to. Keep your eye on those in the paper because those happen quite often as well. And of course, the last type of auction I'm going to talk about before our break are foreclosure auctions. Now, foreclosure auctions, as I mentioned at the beginning of this broadcast, are auctions whereby people haven't paid their mortgages, and the bank finally, through their efforts of, or should I say, non-efforts of being able to work out the difference with the homeowners, will foreclose on the property. Usually they'll put an ad, or I shouldn't say usually, all of the time they'll put an ad in the legal notices in the paper that's required by law. They'll write down in the ad what the required deposit is. Is it $5,000? Is it $10,000? And of course, the successful bidder over the bank's bid. So the bank might open up the bidding at, I don't know, let's say $100,000, and let's say the house is worth $200,000. So the bidders will bid it up to the point where they think the property is worth it for them to purchase and or make a profit. Now, sometimes people purchase at auctions, foreclosure auctions, for their own personal residence. So those people usually tend to pay a little bit more. Other people will buy at foreclosure auctions to rent the property out once they take possession. Other buyers at foreclosure auctions will buy with the intention of fixing the property up and flipping the house immediately for an immediate profit. So there's three different types of buyers on what their intended use is. Those are the folks that will either pay more or pay less for the property. Now, the sales agreement, as I mentioned, is usually a 30-day closing, and its time is of the essence. And of course, at that closing, when you have a closing 30 days later, just like the previous types of auctions, you have to pay all back taxes, all water liens, sewer liens, and so on and so forth. So that gives you an idea of how the auction process works. These happen every single day. They're not too difficult to get involved in. I tell folks in the beginning, hey, look, if you're going to be a minnow swimming with the sharks, just go to a few auctions just for practice. Just go there, just visibly see how they work, get the rhythm down of an auction, see who the players are at an auction, and you can kind of get the feel for, how the system works. After you go to after a half a dozen or a dozen of these things and you feel comfortable, that's when you actually bring a check with you, a deposit check, and you dip your foot in the water for the first time. Of course, the first time you do anything, it's always a little scary, but you won't regret it later on. The key, of course, is getting the property for the right amount, the right price. Okay, so having said that, let's talk about the trends in the real estate business right now, where these auctions are. The most popular houses, contrary to popular belief, we're going to talk about this before the break, and I'm hoping after the break someone will call in technical questions that I may be able to answer for you. The most popular houses in the foreclosure world are the regular, everyday capes and ranches, the 1,200 square foot ranch, the 1,400 square foot cape that are basically. Usually the large houses are not too popular in the foreclosure world, believe it or not, because first of all, those houses usually don't go to auction that often. And second of all, the folks that live in those larger homes usually have some sort of means of correcting their debt. Not all the time, but, quite often. So just wanted to let you know that the average house that gets flipped is about 1,200 square feet. So that's that regular ranch house on probably on the street that you live on. Very, very common. And those are done in volume because first-time home buyers love those houses. So the typical progression is you buy it at auction, you fix it up, and a first or second-time home buyer will buy one of those houses. And then you do that over and over and over again. So let's take our first break. And we'll be right back. And, of course, feel free to call 766-1240 if you have any questions. We'll be right back.
Real Estate Pro Talk is a live radio talk show dedicated to educating its listeners on the entire spectrum of real estate matters. Part of the American dream is owning a home or investment property, or perhaps even becoming a real estate agent yourself. Paul Vanas and his team of real estate professionals have over 250 combined years of experience in the industry. In other words, we can make it happen for you. Why go down the road less traveled when we can put you directly on the real estate superhighway? Whether buying or selling in today's complicated real estate market, or if you just need advice about jumping into the real estate business for a career change, you'll need a decisive edge based on experience. Call Paul Vanas at 401-265-6144 for a free, no-obligation consultation. That's Paul Vanas at 401-265-6144.
And welcome back to Real Estate Pro Talk. We're here today. I don't have a guest, unfortunately. All of my guests are out closing real estate because today is the first of the month, and the first of the month is usually the busiest day of the month in the real estate business because everyone wants to close on the first in order to not pay a full month's mortgage interest at the closing. So all of my guests are out today at their closings doing what they should be doing. So I'm taking this opportunity to just take one of my classes and kind of break down some of the highlights of it so you can kind of understand how this investing world works in flipping real estate, tax sales, condo lien sales, foreclosure auctions, and we welcome any questions. Now, of course, if you have any questions today and you'd like to call 766-1240, you can. If you're listening today on Friday afternoon, and of course, if you're listening on Saturday, because this program is rebroadcast on Saturday, obviously it will be a repeat, a recording. Feel free to call my cell phone at 401-265-6144. So those folks that are interested, I hope you're writing this material down. And those folks who aren't, I hope you're just enjoying the show. So let's see what happens now. Once you buy a foreclosure, or should I say before you buy a foreclosure, you really have to define your turf. And I'm going to talk about some of the strategies now, not so much the process, but some of the strategies that you use in real estate investing. You have to define your turf. And what I mean by that is that you really have to know your market area. If you live and sell in Northern Rhode Island, I suggest people stick to Northern Rhode Island. I can't go to Westerly and look at a foreclosure and effectively price that property, without getting into trouble. Why? Well, because there's someone down in Westerly who specializes in the Westerly market who knows how to price that property. I mean, I can take a clear guess from appraised value There's appraisal software that will tell you what a property's worth. But what those software packages don't do is they don't take into consideration the little idiosyncrasies. So, for example, a house, if you have a main road, houses on one side of the street may go to a particular elementary school that's popular, while houses on the other side of the street go to another elementary school that's not popular. And that may have an effect on the value of the house that you're going to sell. Now, if I go down to Westerly and I'm not familiar with the school district or any of the idiosyncrasies of that market, I might end up paying a little more for the house that's on the wrong side of the street. So therefore, that's a mistake. So I tell everyone, define your turf and stick to your location. And then, of course, there's observation strategies. The first time you go to an auction, they're a little bit exciting. It's out of the norm. You don't do this every day, especially if you're just starting off. I mean, I do. At one point, a couple of years ago, 3 years ago, I was going to 40 auctions a week, 8 a day, 5 days a week. So when you go to that many auctions, it's like playing the guitar. If I spent 8 hours a day practicing the guitar every day for a few years, I'd be a darn good guitarist. So it's the same way. When you go to these auctions initially, go there and observe. Look and see who the players are, what's said, how the auctioneer conducts the auction, and so on and so forth. And I also tell everyone, look, when the auction's over, just don't get in your car and drive away. I have a saying that's after the party is over, pay attention to what comes next. Because sometimes at these things, you'll see, if you hang around long enough after the auction, you'll see, two people that were bidding against each other get in the same car and drive away. So there's little strategies, there's little observation strategies that it pays you to observe when you first go to one auction. Now, and it doesn't matter if it's a tax auction or a condo lien auction or a foreclosure auction. Use these same principles for every one of those. And another thing I tell people is like, don't get overly friendly with the people in the street, the bidders in the street, because when a new person shows up, everyone wants to know who they are, how much they're going to bid, and how much they think the property is worth. Just kind of stay to yourself and say, I'm just here as an observer, and so on and so forth. You don't really want to tip your hand. So those strategies, if you use those strategies over and over, you'll do well. And of course, assuming you know your market. Most people know their market. I know, how much the house across the street should sell for, probably within a couple $100. Now, someone from Warwick might not know what the house across the street from me will sell for within a couple $100 unless they're extremely, extremely familiar with my market. And I tell people, stick with your market and you'll do fine, at least in the beginning. And then if you want to stretch out and you want to expand to go to other markets, then, slowly grow. The sphere of influence, you start with a circle and then you make another circle around that circle and that circle around that circle. And that's how you grow a business, by sphere of influence, concentric circles around your market. The next thing you have to do at an auction, or at least at a bank foreclosure auction, not so much a tax sale auction or a condo lien auction, is you have to do your homework. And what I mean by that is that in that legal advertisement, it's usually denoted that a particular mortgage is foreclosing on the property. Now, you have no idea by reading the ad what position that mortgage is in. Is that a first mortgage? Is it a second mortgage? Is it a third mortgage? Because if it's a second mortgage that's foreclosing and you go to that auction and bid, well, guess what? You're going to owe not only what you bid on the second mortgage, you're going to owe the principal balance of the first mortgage. So you don't want to get in that kind of trouble. And the way you research that is to go to town hall. Very simple. Now, I know it sounds simple, and I'm telling you it's simple. It takes a little practice, but you can go to town hall, or now most town halls are online. You can research this stuff online, and I teach a class on how to do that as well, how to research a property online, do a full title search online. But you do want to make sure you understand what mortgage is foreclosing. Because if you make a mistake and you bid on a house that has a second mortgage and you are unaware of the first mortgage, what's going to happen is you're going to lose your deposit, because at some point you're going to find out you may owe X amount of dollars more at that closing. And at that point you say, you know what, I'm just going to let my deposit go, because I'm not going to pay $250,000 for a $200,000 house. So you have to do a little bit of research. You have to research the property taxes, because the property taxes, the cities or towns don't waive property taxes. Someone has to pay those taxes. So you have to find out in advance, prior to the bank foreclosure auction, how much is owed on that property. And it's very simple. You can either call or go down to the local tax collector's office prior to the sale and say, hey, look, I'm interested in purchasing, going to the auction of the property on 123 blank street. Can you tell me what the taxes owed on the property? And they'll usually give you the taxes. That's usually a given. You're not asking for any more information than that. It's public information. They have to give it to you. So keep that in mind. And another thing is water and sewer bills. Now, usually water and sewer bills are minor, but I've had a couple of situations over the years where the water and sewer bill were in the thousands, believe it or not, where someone just wasn't paying their water bill for a number of years, and the water department never foreclosed on them, so that bill went up into the four figures. I typically don't check water and sewer, but I'd be remiss to tell you not to check the water and sewer. So that's, again, very simple. Call the water department and sewer department and ask, look, I'm going to an auction for a house on so-and-so street. How much is owed right now for the water and or sewer? Because these are expenses that you are going to have to incur. So, when it's a regular auction with a bank on a condo, there may be some condo liens on the property from the association. Call that condo association. That's important, because you want to know, again, what are the liens on that property. And the bottom line is when the fish gets really big, get some help. And what I mean by that is that when you start going to these on a regular basis, and or if you were just starting out, hire a good attorney who'll help you along with this. Sit down with an attorney. We have several in Northern Rhode Island, crackerjack attorneys, and tell them, look, I want to get involved in buying foreclosures. What do you recommend I look for before I buy one of these things? And they'll tell you. They'll be more than happy to help you, because they are going to be doing the closings for you. They are going to be issuing the title insurance for you. So when the fish gets really big, get some help. And of course, if you have an auction that you want to go to and you really don't know how to do a title search to search those mortgages, most attorneys, if you use them on a regular basis, they'll do one or two of the title searches for you for free. If you tell them that they're going to get the closing, if you get the property. So keep that in mind as well. That's important. The next thing I'd like to talk about is how you buy these things. You need money. Unfortunately, in life, in a capitalist society, we need money, and cash is always king. If you have money, that's great. If you don't have money, don't let that stop you. I bought my first house with an American Express card. No word of a lie, true story. And of course, at that time, I was too dumb to know that an American Express card had to be paid back within 30 days. I thought it was a regular credit card that I could take time. So that was another problem I had 29 days later. You can take equity loans on your house to get cash. You can do what I call calling Uncle Leo. Uncle Leo is that relative that still has his paper route money from 1946. He's looking for a good return on his investment. You can explain to Uncle Leo that, hey, Uncle Leo, I can give you a 10% return on your money as compared to let your money sit in a bank account at 0.5% or 1%, and at the same time, you have a mortgage on the property where if I don't pay you, you get to foreclose. And I don't know too many Uncle Leos that foreclose, but that's one way of getting money. Partnerships, if you don't have a lot of money, get a few people together who are in the same position as you are, and collectively you can purchase the property together. And of course, like any other partnership, you really have to scrutinize your partners. You want to make sure you know who you're getting into business with, but it is another way to start off until you're at the point where you can do it on your own. And then, of course, lastly, and we've had a couple of shows on this on the Real Estate Pro Talk, hard money lending. Hard money lending is when you go to a private lender. There's a few of them out there. Anyone who needs a private lender, let me know. I can refer you to a few that are quite popular in our market area. And you borrow money from the hard money lender, and that interest rate may be anywhere from 8% to 12%, but it doesn't matter what the percentage rate is, because if the property has equity and it's a good deal, you're still going to make your profit. So in the beginning, you might have to do some things that are a little bit different than one who is doing this for several years, who's strictly using cash. We all started out somewhere along the food chain, but there is a way to put it together if you really want to put it together. And I tell everyone, use the mouse and the elephant theory. If you're a mouse, go out and get an elephant to help you. If you're an elephant and you have money, you have cash, go out and find a bunch of little mice who will give you a good return on your investment instead of keeping your money tied up in a passbook savings account. The next thing I like to talk about is, and again, I'm trying to condense this for you guys. This is, again, a 3-hour class, but I'm just trying to go over some of the highlights that to give you an understanding of how this works, because a lot of the shows you see on TV, HGTV, Flip That House, and all these others, they really don't get into the meat and potatoes of how this business works. You'll see them on TV, they'll show up at a house, they'll buy it, and then all of a sudden, 3 minutes later, it's fixed up, and then 5 minutes later, it's sold. But they really don't tell you, how it's done. This is a business like any other business. And of course, my dad used to say, if it was easy, everybody'd be doing it. Businesses require skill, dedication, and the ability to go all the way. And that's probably the most important thing in this business, is the ability to go all the way. You'll find that there's always a solution if you keep scratching and you keep digging and looking for the solution. So you got to find out what things cost. That's obvious. If you buy a house, you have to know, well, how much does a boiler cost? How much does a roof cost per square foot or per square? A square is 100 square feet. With time, like anything else in life, you will learn that you can buy windows for $225 a piece. You can put in hardwood floors at $8 a square foot. You can buy a brand new boiler and heating system for $9,500. So once you get those first estimates under your belt, you'll have a good idea from there on in how much it's going to cost you to basically buy and flip future properties. You do is basically a projected cost analysis, just like you would any other investment. How much is it going to cost me? So keep that in mind when you're looking at these things, and you won't get hurt as long as you understand what the prices are of the improvements that you're going to make. So, I'm kind of steamrolling through this here, and I notice I should do one more commercial break. So let me do that now, and then we'll give you some highlights when we get back.
Real Estate Pro Talk is a live radio talk show dedicated to educating its listeners on the entire spectrum of real estate matters. Part of the American dream is owning a home or investment property, or perhaps even becoming a real estate agent yourself. Paul Vanas and his team of real estate professionals have over 250 combined years of experience in the industry. In other words, we can make it happen for you. Why go down the road less traveled when we can put you directly on the real estate superhighway? Whether buying or selling in today's complicated real estate market, or if you just need advice about jumping into the real estate business for a career change, you'll need a decisive edge based on experience. Call Paul Vanas at 401-265-6144 for a free, no-obligation consultation. That's Paul Vanas at 401-265-6144.
And we are back. So thanks, folks, for listening today. Obviously, this is an interesting subject to me. I hope it's interesting to you. I'm trying to at least convey as much technical information as possible about this subject because I've been doing this for 40 years. I absolutely love it. And, we've put lots of folks in houses that didn't think they could afford houses. We've helped people who've been foreclosed on, help them get on with their life. So I find it very gratifying. Just to conclude with the financial part of the discussion here today, always plan on when you buy a house that the house is worth 10% less than what you think it's worth. So if you think the house is worth $300,000, plan on it being $270,000. And the second thing is always plan on having 10% more expenses than you think you're going to have to incur. So if you think you need $30,000 worth of expenses, plan on $33,000 worth of expenses. I call that my 10-10 rule. If you play within that 10-10 rule and you do it consistently, you will not get hurt. So we have about 5 minutes left, and again, I'm just trying to give you a couple of highlights before we conclude this week. The last subject I'd like to address is the actual work. There's a pecking order to work, and what I mean by that is that at some point when you finally pull the trigger and you finally close and you want to have the work done on the property, you're going to need contractors in there fixing that property up for you. Well, there's a pecking order, just like I use Arthur Fiedler as the conductor of the Boston Pops. Well, you are the conductor of that project. So you have to assemble these contractors to work in concert with each other in order to get this house back on the market and sold quickly. Then the key word there is quickly. The goal here is to buy, fix, sell, close, and then do the process all over again and do it a number of times per year or how many times you want to do it. And in order to do that, you have to have these contractors working in concert with each other. So what I mean by that is that you can have multiple contractors working at the house at the same time. You can have a roofer putting the roof on while the landscaper is working on the lawn and while the hardwood floor person is sanding the floors. Because if you have to wait 2 weeks for the roofer, then 2 weeks for the landscaper, and a week and a half for the hardwood floor person, and another 2 weeks for the electrician, well, you just added 2 months of carrying. Those 2 months are expensive, not only especially if you're paying a loan, if you're paying interest, but you're also paying taxes, insurance, water, and a whole host of other expenses, and just opportunity cost of the money. Opportunity cost should always be factored into any kind of investment. So keep that in mind. And of course, I don't usually market the properties until the property is completely done. And for those of you who are old enough to remember the old Aldo Cella commercials, we will sell no wine before it's time. I usually market the property when all of the work is done. I don't usually take people into the house until all the work is done because I believe they should look at the property complete. Think of it like going down to the Ford dealership. They don't show you a car that doesn't have a steering wheel on it, and they don't say, well, the steering wheels are coming in next week. They want to show you the finished product, and you should basically do the same thing in your real estate practice. And of course, the last thing, very last thing I'd like to talk about for the next couple of minutes is taxes. Taxes are something if you're not self-employed, congratulations. And what I mean by that is that you're not paying your own payroll taxes and whatnot every month. You have to take out the money that you're going to make in profit and put it to one side, because at some point when you do your taxes the following year, you're going to owe some money to the government for those taxes, because the profits on the property are just like a business profit. So keep that in mind. We got about a minute left, and I just want to check one more time. Just looking here. Yeah. So no phone calls came in today, guys. If you have any questions at all, try me back at 401-265-6144. Again, the show is put on YouTube, youtube.com. This is probably going to be, I would say, the most watched YouTube video once it gets posted by people who are actively looking for information about how to acquire properties at either tax sales or condo lien sales or foreclosure auctions. I've been in the business a long time, and I found that all of this knowledge that I've acquired that over the last 40 years, I'm trying to give to you in a 50-minute presentation. So I hope, in fact, it's been useful to you. And in closing, next week we're going to have a couple more mortgage people on to talk about the current situation, how closings are happening, because it's changing every week. We're going to have some title folks on, telling us how the closings are happening, and we just trudge on forward until we're done with this COVID-19 situation. So having said that, I thank you for listening this week. Hopefully we'll catch you next week on Real Estate Pro Talk. Thank you.